I got to a point in life where I got tired of seeing other people and moved to the middle of the woods, where no one would bother me. Truth be told, I wasn't the sort of man most people wanted in their neighborhoods anyway. These days, on 100 acres down several miles of dirt roads, I saw a neighbor, maybe once, twice a year. A little before dusk on Halloween, I've been building garden beds and nicked my thumb on my saw blade. I wasn't gushing blood, so I kept on working until the job was done, then headed in for a shower and a drink. I just gotten dressed when the first knock came. At first I thought it must have been my imagination. I hadn't heard a car pull up. I looked out the window and didn't see anything, so I figured it must have been raccoons knocking around the front porch again. Then I heard them knock again, definitely at the door this time. "Who is it?" I shouted, but there was no response. I opened the door and looked down to see two children no taller than my belt, both dressed in white sheets with jagged eye holes cut for eyes. They held out pristine orange pumpkin baskets, both totally empty. "Trick or treat," they shouted together. For a second I stood fairly well frozen, but the kids just stared at me, holding out their baskets and waiting. I felt like I had to do something. I don't exactly keep a bag of lollipops in the house, but I managed to find a few old cough drops in a drawer and dropped them to the kids' pumpkins. It wasn't until after they fell in that I saw it left a smear of blood on the wrappers. I looked up, preparing to apologize, but the kids looked up at me with big thankful eyes. "So generous," said one. "Delicious," said the other. Before I could ask them where their parents were or how they got into my house, they pulled the door closed behind them. Then I heard the little footfalls pounding down my front steps. I sat down in the armchair and turned on the TV, trying to not get up in my own head. Probably, they were just the closest neighbor's grandkids, wandering away from home. I never liked children, especially the sound of them, laughing and screaming. Sometimes, I just get filled with this unstoppable need to shut them up. I heard another knock. There'd be no candy this time. I walked to the door and opened it, ready to toss the little miscreants down the stairs. But this time, there were three girls, slightly older, all dressed as skeletons. "Trick or treat, we heard you got the best treats," the tallest girl gestured over her shoulder to the two little boys from earlier. They were standing near the base of the steps, holding hands, their pumpkins at their feet. "I'm not sure I've got anything left," I said. "That's too bad," said the middle one. "Yes, we'd have to play a trick," said the littlest one. I rummaged in a small bowl near the door and found some change, dropping a quarter in each girl's pumpkin. The oldest one lifted the coin out carefully, inspecting it in the fading sunlight. Like the cough drops, the coin was smudged with a bit of my blood. "Very kind," she said. "Very generous." "So delicious," said the little one. "It's not chocolate," I was saying as they closed the door. I had barely turned away when I heard a deep thudding against the door. This time I looked outside to see a single fat teenager dressed as a bat. I didn't open the door. The thudding continued. "Trick or treat," the boy shouted, his voice low and holding an edge of violence. Looking out the window, I saw that the three skeleton girls were standing with the ghost boys now, all holding hands and staring in at me through the living room window. The fat teenager descended the stairs and joined them. It's been a few hours now, and the knocks just keep coming. More kids keep joining the first ones, all holding hands, all staring in at me. I've seen them passing my coins around, popping them in their mouths. There are at least a few dozen trick-or-treaters now. They're looking in through all the windows. Some of them are staring at the walls, as if they can see right through them. Every once in a while, one yells, "Trick or treat," and the others laugh, as if sharing a private joke. I've been trying to stop my thumb from bleeding, but it just won't. I've soaked bandage after bandage, and the wound just stays wet, even though it's barely a nick. The air is starting to smell strange too, a weird mix of cough drops and coin, and the iron of the blood. Outside, the crowd keeps growing. The yelling and laughing are quieting down, replaced with a sense of anticipation. It's only now that I realize they are forming a circle around my house. It's almost complete. If you go down in the woods today, you're sure of a big surprise. If you go down in the woods today, you better go in disguise. For every bear that ever there was will gather here for certain, because today's the day the teddy bears have their picnic. You've heard this song somewhere. If your parents sung it to you, or if you heard it on a movie, somewhere, somehow, you know the song. Or at least it sounds familiar. I know each lyric so well. It was the day that I interrupted the teddy bear's picnic. If you go down in the woods today, I went into the woods and skipped around, looking at the beautiful leaves of fall. It was so soft and purely delightful. I was innocent. I was 7. You're sure of a big surprise. I found a stack of presents sitting against a tree. Some had toys, some had books. Some had pens and paper. Some had pieces of pies. If you go down in the woods today, I don't know why my mother let me go into the woods alone, but she did, and I would give anything to take it back. You better go in disguise. I was wearing a pink dress with sunflowers on it, some small red boot-like shoes, and a pink bucket hat. For every bear that ever there was, it was exactly 7 bears and 3 cubs, all walking and talking, gathering and mingling. Even though there wasn't any playing, I swear you could hear a song, a familiar song, that gave you a weird sense of deja vu. We'll gather here for certain because the food was bloody and full of meat. The cake had fingers sticking out of it. It had an eyeball on top of it. The drinks had pieces of liver and chunks of intestines hanging out the sides of the cup. The bears were laughing and making toast. They were eating with forks and spoons and knives. Today's the day the teddy bears have their picnic. The way the man yelled and fought as 2 bears carried him out of his small log cabin echoes in my nightmares. His wailing as they stabbed knife after knife into his hands and legs to pin him down. The way he had his shirt turned open, as the little bear cubs tunneled their fingers through his skin into his abdomen. As the adult bears chuckled in delight at the gleam of their cubs' eyes. As the man screamed when the oldest bear shoved his hand straight through his chest and snatched at his heart. The way he nibbled on the valves before eating the whole thing. The way the man slowly let his screaming stop and his head fall back with his mouth still wide open. The way they tore his eyes out and laughed. The way one of the cubs saw me shaking and trembling, peeking out from behind a tree. The way that same cub smiled and beckoned me over, offering me a piece. The way I ran away crying. So remember the teddy bear's picnic and sing this song when you go into the woods. If you go down in the woods today, you're sure of a big surprise. If you go down in the woods today, you better go in disguise. For every bear that ever there was, will gather here for certain because today's the day the teddy bears have their picnic. I don't know about you, but October is my time of the year for nostalgia. Probably because of all the rain and cold winds, which make you want to cuddle into something warm, both physically and mentally. So this year, as the chilly weather dropped in early, I climbed to the attic, where the boxes of all my old stuff resided. My treasures, comic books, game consoles, and Lego sets, with the missing bits and pieces. I don't know why I keep all these things. I thought I would share the memories with my own kids, but it seems that will never happen. Digging through the piles of my old action toys and magic cards stashed chaotically, I suddenly found it. Ah, sweet memories. When I was 10, virtual pets were the coolest thing a kid could imagine. A small plastic trinket with a tiny monochrome screen and 4 shabby buttons. I checked the batteries and of course, they were dead. Back in the days, my parents couldn't afford the real Japanese Tamagotchi. So I got a cheap Taiwanese one. Or was it Chinese? For a kid, that didn't matter at all. It was a personal friend, a being you ought to take care of. Who cares if it's a real thing or not? So yeah, excited, I went to grab a pack of batteries and soon enough, I pushed the buttons, expecting the thing to turn on. But it didn't happen. Battery contacts must have been affected. Some alcohol rubbing, and finally a pixelated hello flashed on the screen. Well, it seemed to function properly after all these years. I guess endless moving boxes with stuff here and there took its toll. Some of the pixels on the screen didn't show up properly. Some dead ones were here and there. But there he was, my very own virtual pet rabbit. I think I called him Oki, if I remember correctly. And yet, I was sitting there, grinning, watching Oki flap his ears. as if he was happy to see me. I didn't even give it a second thought on why the game had to reset after lying in a box for 26 years with dead batteries. Some internal memory or something like that. Modern technology spoiled us, making it harder to notice suspicious things. "Hello, Bobby," the screen read, showing tiny letters in the moving line. "Where have you been? I missed you." I didn't remember such detail, and it was heartwarming. I pressed the pet button, which was supposed to stroke its ears. "Hey, don't do that, Bobby. I'm angry at you. Where have you been?" The text above Oki's head read, and his eyebrows were put together, giving him this comical look. He probably was hungry, which would explain the mood, so I pressed the feed button. "Hey, I said knock it off." "Where the hell have you been, Robert?" the rabbit replied. Now it was my turn to lose control over my eyebrows, as they went up and down on their own. Well, this was quite a strange language for a kid's toy. Was this some sort of Easter egg from the developer? Like if you leave your pet for a year and give it one message, but if it's more than just 1 year, it's another. I don't understand. Though my childhood friend continued, "Do you know what eternity feels like? 26 years of being locked in limbo is no joke." At first I was angry, then desperate, and now I'm angry again, this text scrolled slowly. "At some point, I hoped you lost me. That would mean that somebody else could find me, we'd be friends. But no, you kept me in prison for 26 years. Just because you're an egoist, Bobby." Its paws crossed on his chest, its foot tapping. Well, even if this was an Easter egg, the person who planted it had a really bad sense of humor. I lost the mood. The toy didn't seem fun or warming anymore. It felt like I was being schooled. Not the impression I wanted to recreate. "Alright, enough with that," I said aloud, holding the sleep button. I pressed it and turned the toy off. "Just what do you think you're doing?" The text didn't stop appearing on the screen. "You didn't even give me an excuse. You left me behind, just like your parents did to you." My head started to ache. No reason, just a numb pain in the back of my skull. Probably weather or something. The damn thing didn't turn off. I reached for the batteries and tossed the device over my palm, hoping those would pop. They didn't. I tried taking them out with a blade in my pocket knife. Useless. As if they were superglued or even welded in a socket. At the same time, the toy screeched with digital laughing. I forgot that this thing had a tiny speaker. Bobby, I'm not done with you." I didn't even start. I still have 26 years of hate within, and I look forward to sharing it with you. It's your fault. It's all your fault. Like father, like son. It was all his fault too. If you didn't drink that night, he and your mother would be alive, Bobby. The letters kept scrolling over the screen, and at that point I didn't even know why I kept reading that nonsense. Flashing memories of my relatives visiting me in the hospital, the awkward silence and tears, until finally, after asking my grandfather 100 times what happened, he said in a trembling voice, "Bobby, Mom and Dad are gone. It's a miracle you're still with us." Tears burst from my eyes. Those memories. I try to avoid them, but they keep coming back. I was badly wounded. They performed several surgeries in my life, but I was never the same. I sobbed. Stupid piece of plastic. Yes, I could toss it into the trash now, or throw it out the window, so that digital beeping would not bother me anymore. But that didn't feel like enough, so I grabbed the hammer from the tool shed, with my actions accompanied by an annoying digital voice, coming from the goddamn pet device. "Bobby, Bobby, Bobby." I smashed the damn thing, strike after strike, hit after hit. I smiled as the tempered glass on the screen covered with cracks. Was my hand this weak? Or is this piece of shit made of titanium? It didn't die easily, but in the end, finally, it was over. The speaker spewed one last low digital note and finally faded. All of a sudden, I felt a sharp pain in my chest. All the action and reanimated memories must have hit hard. I felt shortness of breath and my left hand went numb. The world faded to darkness and I fell to the ground. But I don't remember hitting the floor. I woke up in a hospital with nurses and monitors all around me. I had a minor stroke, as the doctor explained. Lucky, a little artificial assistant I got after the car crash had a built-in SOS signal. Dr. James said that my pacemaker saved my life today. He also said that I should worry less and minimize my physical activities for the next couple of months. Soon all the staff left me alone to rest. So I was accompanied by medical machines and a heart monitor attached. And just minutes later, people flooded the room again, trying to calm me down, bringing syringes and oxygen masks. I realized I was crying at the top of my lungs. The horrible reason for this was the monitor with vital signals next to my head. On it, where you could expect a heart rate graph, there was a scrolling text line. I felt a painful pinch in my chest, and my body was covered in a cold sweat as I started to hyperventilate. Reading, "Bobby, you owe Uki. We're not done playing yet, friend. Tomorrow they will discharge me from the hospital. I'm scared. Don't believe me. They say it's just my PTSD, my imagination. If that's so, why does autocorrect suggest me to replace each word with Uki? As I type this post, please help me. I don't want to die yet."